wasn't a good place very, very quickly. And that feeds into the change room, and by no means did the players down tools, but Stewardy just put a lot of pressure on himself and all the rest of it, and I suppose you've went from that really high of like, look where we are, to now, oh my word, what's happened? He lifting the wee boy up and all, the relief that gave me, like that was 6 months of just torture at Inverness where I wasn't playing, and I felt, you do question, am I good enough? Why am I not getting played? Am I not doing enough here? And you question everything you do as a player, and I always question them because I always expected the best from myself.
And toward off the pitch is what really kind of done it for me, like all the community that's around, the people that are in the, you know, in the kitchen and the volunteers around the club. It's a real, you really feel, when you do well there, like the love that you feel from being at Glentoran.
And listen, I still maintain to this very day, if it had stayed, we would not have been in the position.
We would not have been better than you than the end of it.
1,000,000%, we'd have turned it around. The squad was there, the squad was good. We would have turned it around. There's no doubt about that.
Welcome to the channel, mate.
Thank you.
How are you finding, you know, your first few weeks of retirement?
It's been good. I suppose at this stage of the year you're always off, so it maybe really hasn't sunk in, I suppose, you know, until maybe July and pre-season and teams start getting back in, and I'm not doing that. It'll really become a bit more real. Listen, everybody wants a break at the end of the year, and obviously a big build up to retiring, and that last night having the two boys and my wife and family there, it was a wee bit emotional, you know, when you look back and such a long career. So I don't think it's sunk in, and I don't think it will until maybe July and things start kicking off again, and then I'll really know how I feel.
Are you definitely done?
I'm definitely done, yeah.
July, August, few amateur league teams start ringing.
I'm going to do a Paul Heatley and retire and then come back.
You don't need the training, just come on a Saturday, score.
Well, sometimes that's not too bad.
A few hundred quid in the pocket.
Some people that carry me say I never trained anyway. Listen, I suppose I'll say never, but I've had a few offers and things, and different. I've had a manager's offer, and different various things so far. But at the minute, I'm just sort of taking a break and seeing what happens, letting the land lie a wee bit. And but I would say my playing days are pretty much done. Yeah.
You know, it's been a huge part of your life for probably the guts of 20. Well, I mean, I'm sure since you were very young, but you know, having that routine. If we go back, you know, the whole way to the start, you really started your career with Bournemouth across the water. Mm-hmm. What was that like when you were kind of, you know, what age were you when you went over, and what was that experience like? You know,
I was 16. It was really, really hard because that's something I dreamed of my whole life, from, you know, playing football 8, 9, 10 and having aspirations to be a professional footballer. You get that opportunity. I'd been on a couple of trials and things, but then the realisation of when you're leaving and you have to leave your family and things, and it was very, very hard. You know, I went over, I stayed in like a landlady's house, originally on my own, and it didn't go that well. She, not disrespecting the woman, she was a wee bit older and didn't really interact with me that much, and there were problems with food and things like that, and I found it really, really difficult. Even, I suppose, coming from Northern Ireland, our banter and our way of life slightly different from England, and all of the lads, or majority of the lads who were in the Bournemouth youth team at that stage, came through the academy, so they all knew each other. Yeah. So it really did take me about a year to get going and really find my feet. I actually moved after the first year into a house around the corner, and it was a bit more of a family. Yeah. With another lad who was playing for Bournemouth at the time, and then I just flourished from then and started scoring goals, banging, you know, goals in left, right, and centre, and really enjoying my life in Bournemouth. It was a fantastic place to live. Like, it was a brilliant place. The weather, the beach, you know, great nightlife and all. And that was really that year. Then I pushed on and I ended up getting the professional contract. And then, did you ever make any first team appearances with Bournemouth? Or no, I was close. I was always in the squad, or I was maybe the one left out. Played in a lot of friendlies and things. Played against Everton in a friendly. But Sean O'Driscoll sort of left quite early on in when I had moved into the first team. He was a manager at the time. He left, and a guy called Kevin Bond came in. Right. Kevin Bond was like Harry Redknapp's sort of right hand man at Portsmouth. And even when Harry Redknapp went to Tottenham in the Prem and things, Kevin Bond was there right beside him. So he started bringing in a lot of loan players from Portsmouth. Darryl Fordyce actually came down from Portsmouth on loan for a period of time, with all sorts of boys coming down, and that sort of pushed me down the pecking order. And I suppose when you look when you come in as a manager and you see, oh, there's so-and-so, Curtis Allen, he hasn't made any appearances, he's always the lad that seems to be left out of the squad. Well, it's easy just to continue that, you know, and I went and fought my cause, as I always have throughout my career, and said, listen, you know, I can play, I can score goals in this league. Listen, he said all the right things, but ultimately then when the time came, it was time to move on, and unfortunately I didn't get it, which was disappointing, because listen, I felt at that stage, you know, I was good enough to play and certainly score goals in that league.
And did you have a desire to stay across the water and there was nothing available, or at that point
I went down
set and coming home?
I went down to Leyton Orient actually on trial, so I had an agent at the time, and I went down there and I lived in London for a month, and I did really well. You know, played friendlies. I think I scored a hat-trick and a friendly for them, and they'd actually offered me a contract, but the money was poor. It was, and my agent was saying, listen, stay in my house and we'll just deal with it. But it was buttons for what you would be really wanting. So I decided, listen, it was time to come home, and the Glens and different teams had sort of came on, you know, been on to me already.
Yeah.
And you're sort of thinking, well, listen, maybe it is time, and I'll take a roll of the dice at home, and really end up coming home and signing for Lisbon Distillery purely because I knew Paul Kirk, and that was really, I knew him because he used to come into my primary school and do after school football.
Right.
So I didn't even speak to really any other clubs. I just went straight down and said, yeah, I'll sign at Distillery. Yeah, so and that was
and
it.
They were in the Premiership at the time, weren't they?
Yeah, they were a decent side. Andy Waterworth, you know, Gary Brown, and a lot of, you know, Ryan McCann's and things, a lot of good players. And again, that transition from full-time football, where I was trained at 10:30, finished at 1, you know, going down the beach and having the laughs, very quickly changed to working in River Island 9 to 6 and going to training 7 to 9.
Yeah.
So that transition was madness for me, and that first year back I really found it hard to try, you know, get that and really find my way. Didn't play a lot of games, bar really. I had lots of appearances and things, you know, off the bench, and really the end of the season we played Institute away, and it was one of these games where there was nothing to play for. Where, you know, the boys who had all played were all being rested away to Institute, of all places you want to go on the last day of the season, and I was starting. And funny, I used this example to some of our young lads that played there against Glenavon for Carrick, where, you know, Stephen had changed the team and would give a lot of boys chances. That day at Institute, Paddy McLaughlin was playing centre back. We won 2-0. I scored both. And I know that was the last game of the season, and the season finished and everyone went off on their holidays. But for me, that was massive in terms of my career, because it showed me a little bit of belief again.
Yeah.
To go, do you know what, I am a good player, you know, and I'd had a hard year coming back. And listen, you come back to England and you haven't made it, you know, there's a big whole thing about you being away and you're going to do this and that, and then you do feel a wee bit like it's a bit of a failure, yourself, your family, your friends, and then you come back to the Irish League and you find it so different, you know, it can be hard. So that really pushed me on, and I suppose in terms of the league, you know, and Paul Kirk and all of those went, well, this boy can do it.
It puts a wee bit of in their mind for going into the next season. It's fresh in your mind. That
he is. You know, it wasn't as if I played against a child. You know, Paddy McLaughlin was a, you know, well-established player. He was a hard, you know, man, strong and all the rest of it. So, listen, the next year scored 25 goals in the league.
Kicked that on.
You know, and it was lucky Andy went to Hamilton, which opened the door for me, and I worked hard in pre-season and had that mindset, and there I went in and banged 25 goals, and, you know, never looked back really from there.
At that time, was it still in your head that, you know, football was going to be a career for you, and you were going, you know, I score a load of goals here, maybe I'll get a move to Hamilton, maybe I'll go back? Was that always at that stage in your head?
Always, and I was always quite open to say that I wanted to go across the back, you know, go across, because I just always had that mindset. It was good enough, you know. I always felt that I just had something different in terms of that goal scoring ability. And listen, I worked hard to score goals. I did have a natural ability, but, you know, I did a lot of work, and I reflected constantly about scoring goals. I was watching videos. Every time I was watching matches or matches a day, I was watching the striker, I was watching movements, I was thinking about it all the time.
I can even remember you playing scoring 2 and coming in absolutely raging because you'd missed one right at the end of the game.
Honestly, I was like, it was like an addiction. Scoring goals was an addiction to me. I just thrived off it, and like I used to say all the time about I wasn't scared of missing chances, but I was afraid not to score.
Yeah.
And I had that saying in my life all the time. You know, I said it again, I wasn't scared to miss, but I was afraid not to score, and I just I just had that mindset, and you hear these people who are very, very successful at the top of the game about obsession and all those things, and I had that. Listen, I wasn't the top level of all the things that you see some of the Premier League players, but I still maintain to this day that I had that ability, I had that level of finishing and movement that was Premier League standard. And you know, driving up in the car and all the rest of it, like with Stevie and Cameron and over these last few years at Carrick, you know, we talk about Man United and Hoyland and all, and they used to laugh, and I used to say, listen, if I played in Man City's team now, I'd score 15, 20 goals in the Premier League. Like, you know, and they used to laugh and say, you actually believe that? And I genuinely do.
Yeah,
believe,
you know, delusion actually does help, because so much of football is about confidence as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, you may not be the best player on the pitch, but if you believe you're the best player on the pitch, that
well, that's it. You know, it all comes down to mindset. These things, like scoring goals, and that's, you know, and I said, you know, I spoke to somebody recently about Matthew Shevlin, and listen, Chevy certainly wouldn't be an out-and-out goal scorer, a natural goal scorer, but he has put so much work in, and he's looked and he's reflected and he's listened to people talking to him and trying to help him, and now he's consistently scoring goals, and the best players consistently score goals. Anybody can score 20 goals in a season and have a great season, but the best players do it year on year on year, and that's what I thrived on. Like, even now, this sort of off-season, if I was going in to play again this season, I would have been constantly thinking, like that's done. I've scored 20 goals. That's done. Right, how am I going to do it again? How am I going to do it again? And I thrived on that pressure. I loved having that pressure, especially at the Glens at that time. We weren't doing particularly well, but I knew people were looking to me to score the goals, and I know that's hard, but I just learned to love it. I loved that pressure. I loved thriving on it, and wanting to be that person that people relied on, and that just pushed me to work harder and harder and harder. And listen, I still, you know, I was disappointed probably last year at Carrick, you know, because there was times where we weren't scoring goals, and I was sitting watching, and yes, maybe I wasn't just as sharp, or, you know, I adapted my game and stuff. Well, I'm pretty still fit, but, you know, to me, listen, the ball dropped in the box. It didn't matter whether it was Curtis Allen at 16 or Curtis Allen at 37. There was only going to be one outcome.
Yeah. When talking of pressure, then after the Saudi, you went probably where the pressure's the highest in the league, the Linfield. Was that Davy that signed you there, and
yeah,
what made you?
It was a strange one, because Distillery had sacked Paul Kirk really out of the blue. We'd qualified for Europe, we'd get beaten in the semi-final of the League Cup, and then they had sacked Paul Kirk for underachieving, which was strange. But all the players had sort of 2 contracts. I don't think you get away with it now, but basically if the manager was sacked, you had freedom of contract.
Right.
So lots of boys were leaving, and obviously then, at that stage, I was one of the hottest properties in Ireland, if not just the league. You know, I was banging goals in left, right and centre. I was young, and you know, there was a lot of coverage and things like that. And the Story were a good team. You know, we weren't, you know, down and out. I could have went to Morecambe. So Sammy McElroy, I was down in Dublin one day, phone rings, Sammy McElroy, hi Curtis, Sammy McElroy, and you're going, oh my word, is this Winky, or is this somebody ringing me, winding me up here, and all the rest of it. And I'd agreed to sign for Morecambe. The deal was pretty much done.
What league were they in at the time?
They were League 1 or League 2, I can't remember, possibly League 1. And they were signing me as their marquee signing. And it was all done. Their chairman was going to fly back from holiday to do this signing, and then I said, listen, I'll go down and speak to Linfield. They'd contact me, and I went down to speak to them, and there was something in my mind that I wasn't sure whether Morecambe was the right move. And I suppose some of that was maybe because when you do come back from England and you have all that sort of heartache and it's hard to get over it, then all of a sudden you start playing again, everybody's saying your name and you're in a team that you love, and you go, oh my word, I've got to go way back over here on my own.
Yeah. And
do I want to do all that again? And I did want to do all that, but you just have that doubt. And I suppose from an arrogant point of view, I was maybe going, well, do I deserve a better move?
Yeah.
You know, do I deserve somebody, you know, in the Championship or League 1? Because I was flying, like I was absolutely flying at the time. Went down and spoke to Davy. We didn't come to an agreement. Told them all the rest of it, and about Morecambe and all the rest of it, and we left. But I'd said to my dad on the way home, I said, I don't think this Morecambe move's it's going to be for me. And in my mind, it was, I wonder, should I do another year or two, do the same again, score the goals, and ramp up my name even more, and then I'll get a bigger move. and that's what I ended up trying to do. Linfield then contacted me pretty soon after, and I think actually Davy Jeffries had rang Paul Kirk and said he's gone, he's left, we haven't signed him. And Paul Kirk had said to him, you need to sign this boy, do whatever you need to do. I'm telling you now, you need to sign this guy. So then Davy they contacted me back and offered me whatever I was asking for, and I went, you know what, Linfield were full time. And at that stage, I suppose, listen, it was full time. It wasn't, you think full time, great. It's certainly not like the full time what we have now.
Well, I've heard of, now, whether this is true or not, but I've heard stories about Linfield being full time back in the day, and there was just like 6 or 7 years that were full time, using it during the day, and you didn't really do too much. Like,
I don't want to say we didn't do too much, because I suppose that's disrespectful to Dennis Shields, but there was times, you know, there was only 6 or 7 of us. There was times that there was no goalkeeper. Billy Joe Burns went in the nets. And listen, we did what we did, and Dennis Shields tried very hard to work with what he's got, you know, as a coach. And
how can you put on a session if you've got 6 people?
Well, that's it, you know, we did bits and pieces and all the rest of it. But the thing was, we trained Monday, then we trained Monday night with the team, we trained Tuesday, and we trained Tuesday night with the team, we trained Wednesday, sometimes went to the gym, we trained Thursday, then trained Thursday night with the team. So you were never away from Windsor.
Yeah.
And that can be draining as a player too. So anyway, it signed, and I actually got injured. Now, I was a marquee signing, you know, people who obviously in the league knew what it was. I'd signed. I'd actually got injured in pre-season. We'd played Dunmurry Young Men, or Dunmurry, I think it was Dunmurry Young Men, and there was a hole in the pitch. I ran, hole in the pitch, done my ankle, which put me out for about 8 weeks, so I missed started the season. So then I came back, and Davy being Davy and Terry Hayes and all the rest of it, you had to play like a reserve game.
Yeah.
So I played against Newry on the Friday night. I scored a hat-trick in the first half. Davy took me off. Well, he took me off. Davy was there, he took me off. We played Newry away on the Saturday for the first team. I started and scored a hat-trick. So what a start I had to my Linfield career.
Was Spike and Peter Thompson there?
Peter Thompson had left. No, neither of them were there. Peter had went across to Stockport at that time. So it was like you had your Mark McAllisters and Michael Carvilles and those boys in there. Spike, I wish Spike had been still there. Could have been a great player to play with, and he would have certainly helped me for flicking things on and holding it up. But the career started very, very well. And then as it moved along, like Davy shifted me sort of out to 3, you know, as wide on a 3. And listen, there was times where everyone knew Davy wanted to be a main man. If I'd scored 2, he would just whip you off. He didn't want you to get the hat-trick. Yeah. You know, and I don't know whether that was just to show that I'm still the boss here. Even on that Newry day, I'd scored 2 and we got a penalty. And Jim Irvine says, there you go, you can take it. And obviously I wanted to hit it. And Davy shouted on, no, he's the penalty taker, he's hitting it. And you can imagine me standing there going, what? So obviously then I did end up scoring the hat-trick anyway, but I think that set a little precedent out of where we were at, and it ended up, listen, I don't want to say I became a bit part player, but I suppose to a certain extent I did. I played sometimes and sometimes I didn't, and 2 years went and I knew it was time to go. I just wasn't enjoying it.
You didn't want to be a bit part player?
No. Listen, my aspirations were still to go across the water again, and I knew you need to be playing every week, you need to be banging goals in. I think I had over the 2 years, I think I had 48 appearances and scored 26 goals. It was something along the lines. That was pretty good. Yeah. So when I did play, I played rightly, but I just didn't play enough. And a lot of the times when we played that 3 with Mark McAllister in the middle and then maybe me out wide, it didn't really suit me. Yeah. As a player. And I thought, listen, it's going to be time to go, and I need to go and make a mark elsewhere and try and do something if I'm going to sort of try and force this move back across the water.
And that's when Coleraine then came in for you. Did you have any other options at that time?
Yeah, listen, I could have went to any club in the league, and I suppose that's not being arrogant. I only went to Coleraine as really a gesture, as a courtesy thing. I didn't know her, and I remember driving down with my dad, and he said, look, we'll meet you halfway. Sorry, excuse me. And we said, no, we'll drive down. And I remember driving down to my dad and saying, like, I don't think they're going to be able to pay even anywhere near the wages I'd want, and I don't think this is going to be for me. But we went down and spoke to Oran, and I actually ended up signing that day. I loved everything he said, loved the club and the whole sort of goals that they had, and I ended up signing. And I remember saying to Oran, listen, my goal here is used as a stepping stone. And I don't think it's disrespectful of me to say that for me that was taking a step back, this takes two forward. Coleraine, what basically Orm was calling him as a sleeping giant. I agreed. And Orm was obviously relatively new as a manager. And I remember saying to him, listen, I'm telling you now, I'll guarantee you 20 goals. If I play the majority of the games, I'll guarantee you 20 goals a season, and that's what you need. I played 2 seasons, I scored 20 in my first season, 25 in the second, and Inverness came knocking. I let my contract run out. They had offered me extensions and things, but the ultimate goal, and that was 2 years, in advance. And I suppose I was always forward thinking like that. And I suppose as a footballer, maybe you do have to think like that of, where am I going next and what am I going to do? And I let that contract run out, and there was rumours of Kilmarnock at the time. Kenny Shields, obviously Orn's father-in-law, had sort of, I think they were watching me, and there was wee rumours and things like that. There was rumours of Scunthorpe, which was Grant McCann at one stage. And then all of a sudden got this phone call through from Inverness, and it was quite late on in the day. I'd let the contract, it was June. It was probably around this time, so if you're sitting here now as a player and you didn't have a club for July,
your feet. Yeah.
But I suppose again I was just going, well listen, I'll have to just get something sorted. I'll get a club. They contacted me and offered me a deal and said basically they'd watched me for a year. They'd saw some of the Sky games and they'd watched different various things and been over to watch and said we've been actively watching you for a year, and offered me a deal and listen, there was no real negotiation. This is the opportunity. I've been and this was years from coming back. I'd been working very hard, and this was the plan all along.
Always the goal to kind of get back across.
And it was never going to be easy, to come back, and you see that all the time now. I see, players who come back across the water.
The majority don't do well.
No,
when the first come back.
It's so hard. It's so hard because, as I say, you go from that full time and you're training during the day and all those things, and then you maybe have to get a job or all those things. It's very, very mentally draining to come back across. And I suppose I just had that mindset and I had that ability to do it, and it was probably a bit of luck too. But
do you think it better? I've asked a couple of people this question, but as a young player, if you've got a chance at say 16 to go across the water, sometimes I think you're maybe better staying, breaking into one of the teams, doing well, and then getting the move across like Gavin White did, like Paul Smith did, and going over there then as an established player going into the first team, rather than being a 16, 17 year old going over into the youth setup. Now it's easy to say that because when the opportunity's sitting there in front of you, how do you say no in a team in England? But what would you think is the better route to kind of getting across?
Even now I would say if I was 16 I would go across. I know there's been some success stories, but I just think it's a different mindset over in England in terms of facilities. And I know we're working very hard over here and we do have some really good setups, Larne and Linfield and Coleraine are now all pushing that, but listen, there's nothing like across the water. And if you're getting the opportunity to go to a championship club or West Ham and Premier League or something, I know you're playing youth team football and I know all of those things, but you're playing with top players and you're in that environment. It's very, very difficult to get up that opportunity. I suppose now in the Irish League we've more opportunities than ever to get across the water, and there's certainly more teams willing to take chances. And I know in Scotland, lots of the teams are actively looking at players now. But I just think sometimes I just think in Irish League there's so many distractions at home, and I know yes maybe the full-time setup now is great for people, but it comes down to logistics of well, how much are they going to ask for as a club? You can go as a 16-year-old
just pay whatever that fee that
and it's a nominal fee, rather than yes, if you use the example now, if it was me now say and I didn't go and then I was at that distillery time where I was flying and how much would they have wanted for me? But because I was free, Morecambe were like, so I suppose it's all the logistics of that. But I just think, for me personally, if it was me doing it, if it was my own son, I would push him to go across water, because even besides that, for me, I matured and so much over there. It was a different way of life.
It's an experience.
It's a massive experience. And to live on your own and do all those things. And listen, I just think if your foot's already in the door, then why not? And the opportunities are there. Listen, if you could do it here and get across and get a big, like the way Trey Human, these boys have all done it, amazing. And I think we'll see much more success stories like that over the years, because I think people are respecting the Irish League more.
A bit more, yeah. You're right.
But listen, if you get
But you're right with it that, like, you know, Linfield or Larne give a 3-year contract to someone. They're not letting those boys go for free. They're not, you know, we'll do right by them. They're professional clubs now as well in their own right.
Well, that's it. And clubs are businesses, you know, and they've got to make money. So listen, you have to be, yes, you want the club to get money and for all the rest of it, for the coaching and all those things, but at the same stretch you've got to try and look after yourself to a certain extent. It's a short career, and lots of decisions in football can make people become professional footballers or amateur league footballers purely, you know, for who you sign for or how long you sign and all
so
those things.
So much of it is down to luck as well.
It is, there's luck.
Like, I could have played for Barcelona, like I was just...
I would say you probably could have, yeah.
When you went over to Inverness, did you go over by yourself again?
Yeah, over by myself. So obviously I was a bit older, and
yeah.
like I was being signed when I went to Inverness for the first team. You know, I wasn't going as a youth team player. So I had that, you know, expectation of I'm going over here to play, and I remember getting the fixtures through, and you see Ranger and you see Celtic, and you think, oh my word, this is amazing. And I knew Scotland was quite easy to get to. I have a friend over in Scotland, lives in Glasgow, so he was going to be, you know, I can see him now. Inverness was way out in the sticks, but I thought it was different this time. You know, I wasn't going as a child. Yeah. Listen, still never easy to go away and leave your family and all the rest of it, but listen, I'd been working so hard to get across there, and I didn't mind going on my own.
What? So you went over pre-season. How did that differ? Say the pre-season, the preparation. You know, at the time you'd been at Linfield, you talked about how the full time was a little bit different.
Yeah.
Coleraine was obviously part time. When you went back over there, did you feel you thrived in that environment, or did you find it a bit of a shock to your system when you went over?
It was a shock because I actually missed the first week of pre-season, so I literally had a family holiday, and it was literally a family holiday to Tenerife. We'd already booked, and I remember speaking to Terry Butcher on the phone and just saying, listen, you know, just the way things work and all the rest of it, you know, I'd been working, so I couldn't go in June, so it was this first week of July, and he okayed it. So it was fine, and I trained every day on that holiday, like I didn't, you know, I wouldn't be a big drinker anyway. Yeah. You know, it wasn't as if, you know, it was the lads, you know, when you're going away and you come back in some shape. You know, I trained and I worked hard, and then went back in, and I suppose maybe Inverness in hindsight now when I look back, and I knew a wee bit more after, we're a club that basically thrived on fitness. They wanted their team to be so fit. Yeah. Not all of the Scottish clubs were like that. So I came back, I'd missed a week, and they threw me into it, and a guy called Maurice Malpass was the assistant manager. I think he was a good Scottish player and had a good career, and he just did all the fitness, so pushed me straight in, run, and like I thought some of like the old Linfield pre-seasons were hard and all the rest of it. Oh my word, I was going home wrecked, and then I was going, I'm up tomorrow. Yeah. I'm going to go do this again. Yeah. So anyway, it turned out it hurt my knee, but I think it was a slight bit of overtraining. I just wasn't recovering, and every time I went in the physio, he'd just say, it's pre-season, you're supposed to be sore. I was going like, I can't move here, like. But I remember going around and like running around, jogging, and my glutes and all, and like, you know when you've done a good leg session at the gym, and then you're supposed to be going out and play a match, or play, you know, training and all the rest of it. And some of these boys obviously been there years, and they were just flying through. You know, it's like muscle memory. And I was going, oh my word, how am I doing here? So it ends up, I hurt my knee. And basically that pushed me back, and so I wasn't even really training with the team then after a couple of weeks, and just getting all sorts of things done. But because I wasn't training, or I was injured, then I had to do double sessions. So I was in training in the morning, like basically on my own, to do like rehab and things, and then I had to go, so they came back, you got lunch, and then I had to go to the pool and do like lengths, and like I was never a real strong swimmer, and the guy Maurice would just stand on the edge of the pool and just be like, you're going too slow, go again, and like I was gone, like I was like drowning, like, you know, like, oh, it's here. And I remember just coming home and going like, I can't do this, like this is too much, like my whole body, you know what swimming's like. But anyway, again, down that mindset, I got through it. and it got up to speed. They had this test, like this run around the pitch test, and you had to do it in so many seconds, or they basically said you weren't fit enough. And I remember them questioning him and going like, what did you do in pre-season at the Irish League clubs and all? Like, they must have been going,
That's the last ever player.
what's going on here? This guy scored all these goals, he can't even run. And like, it was fit, but it just their level was way above what I thought it was going to be. But I did get through it, and I hit the levels, and I did all the rest of it, through weird runs, doing row machines beside Terry Butcher, and all sorts of weird things. I got through it, and then started to obviously train, and in the team, and listen, doing what I'm doing. You know, to me, I played a friendly. Not too far after I started to train, and I scored 2 or 3. I think I scored 2. I remember Terry Butcher making a comment in front of everybody. I can't remember exactly what he said, but basically it said, like, you know, you've been running around here for 6 weeks like nothing, and now you know, and now you're running about there like a
player.
What I thought I was getting.
Yeah.
And even that, I remember going home and ringing my dad and saying all that, and I thought, yes, this is me now. You know, this is me ready to go. But the big thing was you only played one up front. Billy Mackay was the main man, and not too dissimilar from me, probably slightly smaller than me, but you know, good finisher, moved well, and good movement and all of those things, and he was just banging goals in, and I'm going, and you do think this, how am I going to shift this part of the team?
Get him out of the team.
And I suppose some of the other boys that had signed had got wee bits and pieces off the bench and things where I had nothing, you know, and you're trying to foil your way into a team. So the reserve team games, played a load of them, but listen, they're useless. A couple of, you know, matches I scored and all the rest of it, but you're going away.
You can't win there because you come back and you score 4, and it's like, well, you're supposed to. It's a reserve
exactly.
game.
You know,
you come back and you have a stinker and you're getting hammered because it's a reserve team game.
And it was a reserve team game, and listen, I didn't know the lads, and the youth team, you know, reserve team, you know, obviously basically played. Connor Pepper was actually in the youth team at that stage. He was there. A couple of other boys that have done all right actually in their careers, but I just had that mindset that, listen, I didn't want to play reserve, so I wasn't there to play reserve. So I did well some of the runs, and sometimes I didn't play well, but I just couldn't force my way into a team. And any time that I thought maybe, say, Billy was injured or something like that, I thought, this is it. He just didn't put me in. So I went, and I was never one to sort of not go and ask, and I went and asked, and he said, listen, keep working hard and all the rest of it, your opportunities will come. And then the next thing, Terry Butcher was gone. He went to Hibs, big club. Can't even remember the guy's name who came in, but again, I hadn't played. You look down the list, Curtis Allen, none. You know, and I think that really affected my chances, to be honest. So I think at that stage my head just went. It came to like sort of Christmas time, and I just went, I don't want to do this anymore. I just don't want to be here anymore, because I just felt that I was never going to get that opportunity, and I had worked hard. And again, it was one of those ones. I was just sitting there going, I would score goals in this league. Like, it's not that dissimilar from the Irish League. There's some fantastic players in the Scottish Prem, don't get me wrong, way above that standard. But listen, the majority of them are good players. But you know, it wasn't. There was chances. That's what I'm trying to say. And listen, if there's chances,
no matter what level you think you would have been able to score,
I would have been able to score. And my head just went and thought, I don't want to do this, and I ended up, Richie Foran was captain, really, really good captain, looked out for the lads, and I spoke to him and said, listen, I think I'm going to go here. And he said, listen, make sure if you want to go, you have another club lined up, but you know, you really should think about it, and all the rest of it. And it was coming up towards Christmas, and I'd spoke to my dad and various things. The Glens had sort of half been on to me, because they knew I hadn't been playing and all the rest of it. So I just made the decision. I said, listen, I'm not going to sit here for another 6 months or whatever it was, and not play and just train, because I was, listen, we used to get like a wee bus. We used to meet at the ground, and we get a little bus thing together to training. I remember just sitting there on the bus going, like, I don't even want to train here. Like, my head had gone. I just didn't want to be there anymore. A guy, Marley Watkins, I became really friendly with, still playing in Scottish Prem. Was really, really good, and talked to him about it and all the rest of it. And I did think about it. It wasn't, I knew I'd worked very hard to get to that stage, so I didn't want to throw it away. But I just felt that I did everything I could, and I suppose football is one of those things that if you keep trying and trying and trying and you keep saying no, the door closes, you just think, what do you do here, you know? And so I just decided that, listen, it's time to go. And I went and spoke to the manager, and they said, listen, spoke to the manager, spoke to the chairman, and said, listen, give it a couple of days, and if you still want to, then, you know, we'll release you, no problem. And so I'd give it a couple of days, and listen, it was never going to change.
Your mind was made up anyway.
Went, and then I was released and packed the car up and got the boat home, and I'd agreed to sign then for the Glens in January.
Coming back to Glens, who was manager at the time? Was it Eddie?
Eddie, yeah.
Eddie. And was that 2014? Something like that. They hadn't won the first Irish Cup yet, had they? Were the Glens going through any like money troubles at the time, or was it a bit past that?
No, well, there was rumours and stuff, but it was, you know, I think it was well past people not getting paid and things like.
And then so when you came back to the Glens, you know, again, there's you transitioning again. Obviously, a bit of experience previously from transition. Did you find it a bit easier the second time coming home? Like more, this is kind of.
It was more of a relief, I think. I think it was more of a relief coming back the second time, because I suppose when I was at Bournemouth I was younger and there was more people, but I'd went over thinking I was going to be playing the Scottish Prem and doing X, Y and Z, and I just see from the injury, and I'd never really had any injuries throughout my career, and I had this sort of knee injury, and it wasn't a serious thing, but it took a wee while to get past it, and then trying to do all that, and I was mentally drained from the training, from everything, and I suppose that is but full-time footballers being all about, and this was in some shape, but it was probably just more of a relief of I just wanted to go home and have a time at home at Christmas. I couldn't think of anything worse than staying there for days on my own, and I knew I wasn't going to play, and I think we were away to somebody on Boxing Day, like I can't remember, it was far enough, like I thought I just don't want to do this, so it was relief more. I went to the Boxing Day game, which was at the Oval. Didn't know at the time, but I actually sat with the Linfield,
right,
you know, in the little bit up above, little viewing area. I just came with my dad, and we just came out and sat in the right hand area, but then all the Linfield ones sat, but I didn't notice it, and then people said, he must be saying for Linfield.
Okay.
He sat with the Linfield ones here, but I didn't know at the time, but somebody did say that to me, that everyone thought you were going to go Linfield.
And did you kind of go straight into the Glentoran team, or did it take a little while to kind of break through in there?
I played, I think it was a game at New Year's Eve for New Year's Day. I didn't play that. I think it sounds like my voice hurt now, but I think I had something. I said to Eddie, listen, I'm not ready to play in another week or so. So I played on the 6th of January with the first Irish Cup, way to Portadown, which was obviously a big rivalry, and scored 2. Missed a penalty, but scored, and you even know the celebrations and the thing, and then the one that we broke away, you see it all the time now, we broke away late on, and we suck it, Jordan Stewart plays it to me, and I finish it, and the little that boy comes, and I suppose it was fantastic because the crowd all ran on, and the crowd loved it because it was Portadown. It wasn't anything to do with me them running on, but me lifting the wee boy up and all, the relief that gave me, that was 6 months of just torture at Inverness where I wasn't playing, and I felt, you do quite, am I good enough? Why am I not getting played? Am I not doing enough here? And you question everything you do as a player, and I always question them because I always expected the best for myself, and I always, I suppose from an arrogant point of view, thought I was the best and I should be playing, and that was the biggest relief ever, and just again, I am a good player, you know, and all that. And
from that point then, I think like you and the Glentoran fans just always seemed to be a real fantastic connection there. Obviously that was helped probably the winner on, you know, in your debut, but just like over the course of your time there, did you, you know, would you consider yourself a Glentoran fan now? Like I certainly think you'd be a Glentoran legend by all accounts.
Yeah, well, I think they put me into I'm in the legends. I think I was inducted in. I think you must see my picture and all, did you?
Yeah, I'm waiting on my call.
Listen, love the club, and I suppose I never really stayed that long at any real clubs. You know, 2 years seemed to be where I stayed at the club, and then I moved on, and I suppose I was always looking for something better, and that's not me being disrespectful to any of the other clubs, but I just had aspirations of going to the top and being, you know, Premier League and an international player and all those things. That was the dream, and that dream didn't really falter throughout most of my career. Obviously you get older, you know, well, it's not going to happen.
The call-up's probably
the call-up's not going to come, or, you know, Man United's not going to come knock the door now at 35, but I still wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best in the league. I wanted to be the top goal scorer in the league. I wanted to be the top goal scorer in the club. I wanted to do all of those things, and I suppose Glentoran were in a bit of a transition period, and listen, I just worried about scoring goals, and that's what I did most of my career. And when you produce, year on year, then ultimately fans will like you. And listen, at this stage, then I came back and I was in the midst of becoming a teacher. I knew, listen, this was part time, and the full time dream had I'd done that in Inverness, and I knew that was it. So then I'd started the process of becoming a teacher and those things, and listen, I loved everything about the club and they tried to do as much as they could on the pitch, off the pitch, and I've had so many experiences over clubs and countries and managers and all those things, so I was trying to help anybody I could. Just to
Glentoran off the pitch is what really kind of done it for me, like all the community that's around, the people that are in the, in the kitchen and the volunteers around the club. It's a real, you really feel, when you do well there, like the love that you feel from being at Glentoran. And you've won 2 Irish Cups there?
One Irish Cup there, just there. So listen, all clubs have volunteers and all those things, and it's fantastic. I suppose, listen, I lived right and close. They bought my first house right and close to the Oval and all those things. I suppose I knew maybe that dream of going across the water was gone, and I was settled, and I thought
you could really buy in.
I bought in probably more and wanted, because ideally what the plan was that I was going to finish my career and transition into being a sort of strikers coach, and all of those plans were sort of talked about. Then the full-time aspect came in, and I was well within then being a teacher, and that obviously then didn't really work. So I really enjoyed my time there. I wish I could have brought more success, but I suppose, listen, I did as much as I could on and off the pitch, and when I left the club, it was certainly in a better position than it was when I joined it. And when I look back like that, then I think, brilliant. And obviously they've brought me back and put me into the legends and all those things. And it's just, I really appreciate and all those things. Paul Eamon's already been on me about trying to play for the legends already.
I played in a charity match last 2 Saturdays ago. It's the first time I put it on my boots. Played in a charity match up at Mossley, and Leaper played. Leaper was the best player in the pitch. I don't know how old he is now, but I walked off going, he could start probably tomorrow. Now the second half his legs started to go, his passes were all going 5-10 yards short, but he must have been some player in his day, because he was still
a great player.
And we were playing against Mossley, who are a primary amateur team, and he was the best player in the pitch.
And you don't lose that ability, I suppose, and I was lucky in my Irish League career. I was around long enough to play against your Paul Lehmans, your Winky Murphys, your Noel Baileys and all those ones, and then move into your Albert Watsons and the newer sort of era of players. So I got the best of both worlds in that sense. But it was, I loved my time at Glentoran, and I always say Coleraine was another club that I really, really loved, and I suppose that's why I went back there after the Glens. I knew my time was up at the Glens, really. Listen, without going into too much detail or get myself into trouble, Mick and myself didn't always see eye to eye, and there was changes happening and all the rest of it. And I suppose he knew, from a manager's point of view, I wasn't going to be a full-time player, because I wasn't prepared to leave teaching at that stage. Listen, if they were going to offer me 10 grand a week, then I would have done it. But the salary and the positives from it weren't. I wasn't a young player, and all of, maybe 10 years ago, yes, it would have been great.
You could go and earn and have a career.
And it wasn't all about money, but what was being a full-time footballer going to do for me personally? And you have to be selfish at times, and so listen, it wasn't to be, and listen, it just sort of filtered out, and I think he knew, and I knew, and we sort of just said, right, it's time to go. And I was going to go at the end of the season. I'd talked to a couple of clubs and sort of half verbally agreed Ballymena at one stage, and then literally transfer deadline day, like 5 o'clock, Oran Kearney rings me. What do you think? We're coming back. We're going for the treble, and they were going for the treble at this stage. I hadn't played in any of the cups, just through suspension or injuries and things. He says, "You're not cup tied. We're going for the League Cup and the Irish Cup." And all of a sudden you go, oh. And I had such a great time at Coleraine. I had a really good, even the other years I wasn't in Coleraine, I would always have kept in contact with Oran and Trevor McKendry and Colin McKendry, all of those people. And I remember just turning around to my wife Cheryl and going, I guess it could be the right one. And you just feels right. And at this stage, actually, I think it sounds like I'm injured all the time, keep saying I'm injured. I played for about 26 years, I think I was injured probably 5 times. But I remember saying to him, listen, I haven't been playing.
You just came back from injury?
I had a really bad groin. I had that osteopubis or whatever it was, this groin thing. I personally think I got that from overtraining.
Because I can remember your first match back, I came off and you
Yeah.
came on, and
The Glenavon one, home to Glenavon.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
crowd, like the reception you got for coming back.
Yeah, that pre-season we trained over there. I think we were in like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It was ridiculous. And listen, there was no he's 32 or 33, and again my mindset was, I'm not letting them young lads beat me.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the one to go, I'm 32, you're 21, you can't even beat me, and I was still saying that last year, Carrick. So I think that injury came, I was overplaying, not enough recovery, so that really sort of hurt me there, and I'd said the Oran then, obviously I'd agreed, and I was like, listen, I cannot come in, and fans are funny, and listen, I've said this to people all the time about, listen, yes, play if you've got a wee injury and you have to play, but there's some boys who'll not play. A bit like yourself, you wouldn't have played for, we niggle there, I'll take a week off. I think we played recently and you came off our injury, didn't remember just for, I thought there was nothing wrong with him or either way. But I said to Oran, listen, can you make it clear to the fans that I'm not perfectly fit, because they don't know and you go out there and you go, he's lost it or he's useless, and they're going, well actually I'm wrecked here. So the deadline, it was literally, Glentoran started messing about a wee bit and they were looking money, and they obviously knew Coleraine were going for certain things, but at the end of the day it was one stage I was nearly going to have to drive to Coleraine, and it was right on, like we're talking Sky Sports deadline day stuff like, but the deal was done and I'd signed 6 months on loan and then a 2-year pre-contract. Went to Coleraine, first game, came off the bench, League Cup final and won it. We won that, we beat Crusaders 2-1. So first game in, hadn't won it. Was that Glentoran for 5 years and won Irish Cup, but it was the Coleraine for 6 days and won a League Cup. So it was great, obviously a great start, and obviously to come off the bench, even at that was fantastic, and then obviously played the rest of the season, and COVID was in around that stage.
It was that year, it was COVID.
Yeah, it was the COVID year, and then, so basically what happened was, the league didn't get played, and then I don't think
it
stopped the league. So then Linfield were given the league, and the Irish Cup then was pushed back. So it was the semi-final of the Irish Cup, and my loan had finished, but FIFA did this thing where you could extend the loan deal.
Yeah.
Because Coleraine had extended, can't remember, they extended somebody who was on loan. So the next thing I get a phone call from Coleraine, and basically them saying, listen, the Glens won't extend your loan deal.
Because we were in the Irish Cup still?
You were in the Irish Cup other semi-final. I said, what? I was thinking, no way. So I says, listen, I'll speak to them. So rang the chairman. I said, what's going on here? The Coleraine are telling me you're not going to extend this, And he basically said, no, listen, Mix says they're not extending it. And I was like, well, everything I've done for this club, having left in bad terms and all the rest of it, I won't be able to play against Glentoran regardless if we both get to the final.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to play.
Oh, right enough, yeah. Because I was about to say, well, that's actually fair enough, but now I think about it.
I wouldn't have been able to play, and they knew that, and I knew that. I wasn't going to be able to play, I was on loan, so I had a bit of a heated discussion with the chairman, but he just held his hands up and said it's out of my hands. So then rang Mick. Listen, Mick. He basically just said, listen, we're not going to do anything that's going to benefit another club. And I said, like, it's not, you're not, I won't be able to play against you, whatever. They obviously wanted Ballymena to beat. They felt that they had more chance of beating Ballymena in the final than they had Coleraine.
Which is true, because we won.
And then in hindsight, probably what he did first. It wasn't the nicest thing to me, and it was quite nasty, and I felt I was upset, but you were delighted, and Glentoran went on and won it. The mad thing was it went to penalty. The day that we played the semi-final, oh my word, we missed so many chances. We missed so many chances.
It must be very difficult sitting there.
And I was going, oh my word. And listen, not that I would have, I've missed plenty of chances in my career, but you sort of go,
sitting and watching.
And it went to penalties, and with penalties again, and we got put out. Glens went on and won it. So I suppose the plan ultimately worked, but I just thought it was a nasty way to do it, and it is what it is. He made his choices and all the rest of it. So it was disappointing, and disappointed. But listen, it hasn't made me feel anything bad about Glentoran as a club. Ultimately, it wasn't the club's decision to do that. It was the manager's, and listen, he did what he felt was right.
So after Coleraine, then your latest stint there, the last period of your career, you went to Carrick initially. Was it Sturdy signed you, Sturdy King?
Sturdy, yeah. So Coleraine offered me an extension, but I think obviously I was getting just older, and the travelling and all those things, and I sort of thought, I just want to go somewhere where I'm going to play every week. It's quite close and closer to home, and try and enjoy. I knew it was coming to the end of my career, and try and enjoy. And I still wanted to. I suppose again, it's that mindset of going, let's see what I've still, if I've still got a bit. And Peter, the chairman, spoke to him several times, and it was very, very good and to me, and met him a couple of times and all the rest of it, and then agreed to sign and had an amazing start, and I suppose it was a new challenge, and I think I scored in the first 12 games. I scored 8 goals or 9 goals.
I can remember when you went in, because Carricksy for the past maybe 10 years, they've signed a lot of players in your situation. Players at the end of their career, like even now, the people that are near the tail end of their careers are signed, and so many times they've signed that it hasn't went well and they haven't ended up scoring, and they've brought in these marquee signings in their career that haven't signed, but then you seem to be the person that kind of bucked that trend. You were scoring flat out.
It just, honestly, the first month, 2 months, I could not stop scoring, and I was scoring some cracking goals. And then the way to Solitude, ball popped out, Reece played me a little one, and it's just a bit short, and I came in, the boy came in, bang, clattered me, and I just knew there was something wrong with my ankle. I knew something's not right here. Got up, sort of hobbled around. Now, I'd done my ankle a couple of times over my career, but when you go for it, nothing major, but you sort of know, something not right. So I went off, and then Stu was like, we need you, went on, and the ball came up to me, and I tried to hold up, and I was like, I can't even. And I remember Joe Gormley going, are you alright? And I was like, listen, something not right here. So anyway, went off, and I actually was going to New York. It was Halloween, and I'd agreed when I'd signed that I'd already booked New York, and they were, listen, it was fine and all the rest of it. You get these things in when you're doing the contract talks, because they always say yes. So we have a holiday booked here, I need this off, because if you don't stay at the end, then they say no. So I had that booked, but I went away then, obviously ankle really sore, and my wife was pregnant at the time, and with a wee baby with Theo, my first son. So he was in the pram, my wife was pregnant, so I was obviously pulling the bags and all the rest of it. She was pregnant. Had a great time, but the whole time I was in New York, I was like, I feel a bit sick, and you just don't feel yourself. But anyway, I came back and went to see the physio and all the rest of it, and they did little bits and pieces. Nobody really knew what was wrong, and there was sometimes I was walking on it and it felt okay, and that's the thing with ankles. It was the swelling that went down, but I could have been walking like this and think nothing wrong with me, and then I tried to jump or tried to go, and it was really like, oh my word.
Sometimes push off feels okay, but a certain angle you push off
it was really, really strange. Listen, the clubs that Irish League, if it had been a Premier League club that had you in MRI and all the rest of it straight away, but clubs aren't going to do that, unfortunately, over here. It's just we just don't have the finances. So we tried several different things, and this, and I just couldn't get around it. And then we were playing Dungannon away, and this probably went on now, I'd say 2-3 months. And I suppose I was getting wee bits and pieces, and then you start to actually question, well, is it me? Just need to get through a pain threshold here, and all these things. So keep trying to get through, because they were sort of going, I can't see what's wrong and all the rest. So we were away to Dungannon, and the whole squad was sick. Like, everybody was sick. Now, why they put that out in the media, I don't know. Well, I think actually, I don't know if Dungannon had players sick, but they put it out in the media, and as soon as Dungannon heard that, they thought, happy days. We want this game on, because I think the weather was quite cold, and the game probably would have been called off if they hadn't have known that we were sick. So many sick. So I remember Sturdy sending me on a Thursday night. I must have maybe tried to have been running around. I certainly wasn't training. I know I wasn't training, but I maybe did one wee run and sort of half got through it. And I remember Sturdy saying to me, with nobody, we need you to play. Like, Sturdy, I'm not that good here. And listen, he wasn't forcing players, but putting a wee bit of pressure on, as managers would, try and get boys to the door. So I remember driving down on that Saturday with the boys in the car. It was cold, it was freezing, and I was like, boys, I don't know if I should be playing here. Like, I really don't. And the lads were like, oh, what do you think? But I just didn't want to go down there and go, no, it's no good. I knew we were down to the bare bones, so I sort of thought, right, I'll give it a go. I had so many tablets in me, I had it strapped up. Like, honestly, I played 12 minutes and came off. I was like, there's something that, like, I just went. So I walked off raging, and I remember sort of shouting at Sturdy, shouldn't have been playing or something, I was a bit angry at that, and walking down, and Peter, the chairman, was there, and I was like, I need a scan straight away. And he just went, okay. And I remember the physio ringing me and saying, I've never had the chairman send me so quickly, get him a scan. So spoke to Gareth, you know, used to be at the Glen, spoke to him, and he basically said, listen, I can get you an appointment, you know what it's like. So got an appointment, went and got the scan, and said to me, as they do, it'll be 2 weeks before you get the results, but if you know, someday you get it. So that was in Hillsborough. Before I'd get back to Dundonald from Hillsborough, he'd rang me and basically said, I've looked at the scan and I had 2 complete tears in my ankle. And he was like I had acupuncture, I had all these things, man.
That would have done it.
And he said, like, no harm to you, but no amount of acupuncture or massage is going to help your ankle. And it turned out I had to get an operation, put me out the whole season. I had to get like an all complete operation, a little bar put in, the whole thing was just opened right up. And I'd played, and I spoke to like one of my friends, the doctor, and he was like, I honestly don't even know how you play 12 minutes. I don't. Like the way your ankle was just madness, and that was the end. And we talk like from that 9 goals in 12 games. Like I went on and scored an absolute bucketful. I didn't play the rest of the season, and that was 1 season gone. Peter then said, listen, I'd only ever said 2 years, and I was going to retire. Peter said, listen, you've sort of lost a year. But I think he'd saw enough to go, do you want to say no? Do you want to extend this? So I signed an extension actually, and they announced it on the day I had my operation, that the operation went well, but he signed a year's extension. Now I had another year anyway, so I signed that extension. And I suppose from that, I just kept picking up niggly injuries. I never really got going. I suppose with Stewardy then in the second year, we did really well. We got our highest ever finish, and then in the European playoffs and all the rest of it, and it was great. And I certainly scored over 10 goals, and I think I scored 12 or 13 goals. Done relatively well. I was still disappointed at the end of the season. I think I scored 13 goals, and I remember sort of going, well, we did really well, but as I said, I was disappointed I didn't score 20. And any time in my whole career I didn't score 20, I felt that it was a disappointment, it wasn't a good season. And then obviously we move into this year, which I really wanted to be a big year, and my mindset, like I'd worked really hard in pre-season because I went, I got to go out here with an absolute bang. We did a beep test actually in pre-season, and Danny was the only one that actually beat me. And like, there was a lot of young lads, and that was the mindset I had going into the pre-season. Scored the first day of the season against Glenavon. We won 2-0, and I don't know what happened. It just seemed to, it just a couple of different things. I hit the post against Loughgall. I think it was the second game. I think if that had went in, we would have probably went on and brushed them aside. They ended up beating us. And then I don't know. It just seemed to all unravel very quickly. And Stewardy was he wasn't a good place very, very quickly. And that feeds into the change room, and by no means did the players down tools, but Stewardy just put a lot of pressure on himself and all the rest of it, and I suppose you've went from that really high of like, look where we are, to now, oh my word, what's happened? The squad hadn't really changed, and we'd signed, Clucas and Joe Crow, we'd signed a couple of great players, like, so it just very quickly went south, and Stewardy sort of just lost control, and not of the team, it was just of himself, and some of the interviews and things. And I remember actually going I spoke to Scotty and I spoke to Stewardy and just said like just what's going on here, and tried to sort of help him and tried to say to Scotty, don't be like, why is he going out and saying these things, can you not reel him in? And Scotty was like, he just can't help it. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He just can't help it. And listen, he was a fantastic guy. He was mental, like, and I mean that in a lovely way. Lovely fella, great man management in terms of like, now he would say some mad things and players are like, what is going on here? But he absolutely thrived on winning and doing as much as he could, and all those things, and he gave all he could, and listen, I still maintain to this very day, if he'd have stayed, we would not have been in the position. We would not have been
better than you ended up.
I made him chance, we'd have turned it around. The squad was there, the squad was good. We would have turned it around. There's no doubt about that. We would have. There wouldn't have been the wholesale changes and the mindset. It wasn't a mindset change we needed. We'd done very well in both years that I was there, previous, and he went. And
momentum can just go the wrong way and just go on a bad run for a while.
Change very quickly.
All you need is one scrappy 1-0 win, and all of a sudden you're out of that. You can start winning again.
That's it. And a lot of the games we were, and I know people say, oh, we were very unlucky. But we'd conceded really late on, or we'd missed chances, and listen, that happens, and it did happen, and it would have changed changed, and I still maintain it would have, but he just had to get out in the end. It wasn't good for him, it wasn't good for the club, and all these things that we talk about, mental health and things. He wasn't in a good place, and it just wasn't good for him.
You then got a bit of a stint at player manager. You and Sergey.
Yeah, and listen, at no stage, and I actually rang Sturdy, because Peter rang me then that week or a couple of days after and said, like, would you step in, you and Sturdy, or you and Sergey, sorry, would you step in and do the interim manager? And I was like, well, yeah, listen, if it helps the club, then yeah, of course it will. But I actually rang Sturdy straight away after that, and I said, Sturdy, I just want to say that, like, Peter's asked me this, but I did not try and...
Yeah, there was no snaking.
No, there was no, and he was like, listen, Peter asked me who he thought,
right,
who I thought would have been, ones that would have been the best athletes, and I said you. But I just didn't want, and I never, yes, I'd thought about coaching and beyond my career, but I just wanted to make it clear, and I would never ever have done that throughout my whole career. I would never have tried to sort of, manipulate something or think, oh, here's a great opportunity for me because of somebody else's downfall, and Sturdy was 100%, and I spoke to Scotty and all the rest of it and said, no, go and do it. So next thing you know, then the manager, it's just strange. Serge and me's ringing each other going, what do I do? Oh, was that here? I was 100% starting. Cameron Stewart, you're in. Stevie Gordon, you're in. Son Cooker's bench. And with the manager, but oh my word, what a whirlwind that was. It was amazing. It was actually, I loved it, and Sergey will say the same. As a player, I suppose, you just underestimate and you take for granted all the things that go on.
Yeah,
you turn up
stuff.
You turn up at training, you do the training, you moan. Yeah, you do that, you moan again, and you go up the road. You come on a Saturday, you lift the bottles of Lucozade, you lift the bottles of water, you lift the sweets, your kit's starting, and you go out and play. And listen, you do the business, that's what you're paid to do. But there's just so much work goes on behind the scenes that you just take for granted, and there's so many people and so many things to do. And we were on the phone, Sergey, and he was, oh my word, he was 2 foot in, he was brilliant. He was looking at this and all these things, and obviously we're both working, we're both in school. I was a bit more relaxed, I think, from it, and go, listen, we'll just do this. And we played Cliftonville that weekend, and with a couple of wee sort of things, well, I think this, and we worked it out, and then we had to go and obviously and speak to the players. And listen, as a teacher, and I suppose as both teachers, you probably never, I never probably doubted that I would be able to talk in front of them, or people wouldn't respect us. Yeah. But until you stand in front of 25, men, and tell them this is what's happening, and especially when it's been a teammate, like we've been teammates, and all of a sudden I'm your boss, you're my boss. It's a bit like, okay. Yeah. But every one of them, utter respect, and there was no, and like, listen, I obviously was in the car with Lucas and Cameron and Stevie anyway, and like even Big Cameron had said to me after it all, he said, like, honestly, like, there was no way, like, mutterings after, like, cracker, what's he going on about there, which players do, we all do that, about managers and things, and he said, like, honestly, there's not, everybody's respecting what they're doing, and so we put a plan in place for Cliftonville, and that's what we thought was right and what we were going to do, and Sergey hadn't really been playing that much, certainly not as much as me, and I don't think his mindset was really there to be playing as much as what certainly was as I wanted to play. So we both made the call that we wouldn't play because you probably couldn't manage and play at the same time. So we didn't play that game, went and beat Cliftonville 2-0, I think it was 2-0, and it was, listen, it was amazing. It honestly was, like, see the joys of scoring goals, like, there's nothing better than scoring a goal, trust me. Well, you've scored a couple. We've about 250 between us, haven't we?
Yeah, I think so.
You've 3, I have 247. But see,
it's unnecessary. It's less than you're going on this.
I had to get that in. Listen, it was amazing. See that feeling of winning, like, and like Jim and Jilton was standing there beside us, and all the rest of them, and they did not like it. Let's just say, they did not like it.
So now that you've stopped, has that made you think you want to manage even more? I
would love to manage. I would love to manage. I've had enough. A club did offer me. I'll not mention the club. They did offer me.
Was it Carrick?
It wasn't Carrick. No, I'd have probably took the Carrick one. So it wasn't the right thing for me at this time. But I think I would. So obviously I was player coach then, when Stephen obviously came in and went to player coach, which was a strange sort of time for me because I wanted to play and I was in coaching and I wasn't playing. I was coaching and it was all a wee bit strange at times, and I didn't agree with everything that was going on, and I'm not somebody that just says yes all the time. So there was different various areas that probably some disagreements and nothing major, but it was awkward because I wanted to play and then I wasn't playing, so I was fighting my own cause, but at the same stretch I was a coach. So that was all a bit strange, that sort of 6 months after sort of not being the manager. But yeah, I would love to do management. I think I would love to do management more than the coaching. I don't know if that's just my teaching background or aspirations of being a lecturer or a principal and moving towards them. I like to lead, and I suppose if you're the manager, you're leading, and it's something I think that I can do well. I think my man management's good and all those things, and obviously I've got plenty of experience of playing. I would love to have an opportunity, but it has to be the right. Yes, I'm not going to just sort of run into any job just for the sake of it. It has to be right for me and my family and all those things, because one thing I will say, there is an awful lot of work goes into it. The management, the time, the effort, and the talking, and all those things. It's not just a turn up on the night,
like the way the players do.
Yeah, there was aspects of the coaching I liked, but I think if you had to ask, if you would ask me would I prefer to be a manager or a coach, I think definitely I would prefer to be a manager.
You ever fancy going into any media, or what's your immediate goal for I seen when you were retiring, I think you had an article and you said you wanted to stay in football somehow. What does that mean for you?
I don't know. I've done plenty of the media before, interviews like this, and I've done the commentary and things on BBC. So I'm just going to see, what opportunities, maybe come away. Obviously, this is a stage where things sort of quieten down a wee bit. So I'll see if any opportunities, if any, come away and weigh up the best options. You haven't, been out of football that long yourself, and you've stepped into this sort of media world, and maybe that's potentially something I would come into. What have you thought of that?
It's a good way to. I miss the aspect of the social aspect of football. I don't mean drinking or anything like that. I mean the social
car school,
being in the car to go and people, or after football match ringing Cameron on the way home and us talking or slabbering about us not playing or whatever. That's what I kind of missed, and being able to do this, I've been able to actually view the Irish League from, we've been so involved in your current team. Because I've been able to get around, watch different teams. You've actually I've had a better appreciation of the league in general and how much it's growing, because I've been able to, visit different grounds, have chats like this. It's actually really nice reflecting a lot with players and doing this type of thing. But I find this type of stuff has been a real nice way for me to kind of stay involved, and I really enjoyed it. I think there'd definitely be, as kind of NIFL grows, I think there's going to be more and more, say, media type opportunities as you try and kind of replicate, what Premier League's doing, what these other leagues around the world are doing. I even think of something, like the, Carragher and Neville and Richards and Kate. That's brilliant. I love all that stuff. And people actually start watch the show before as well, before you watch the match. And I think there's maybe potential for that type of thing with the Irish League going forward as well.
Yeah, it would be brilliant, but I think that's what we want. We want to grow the game as much as possible, and the Irish League's in a good place. There's no doubt about that. It's growing, but if there's opportunities to grow it further and to be a part of that, then that would be something that would be fantastic. I think you just want to be involved and
stay involved in it somehow,
and give back, because listen, football's been fantastic to me for so many years, and you want to try and give back some of that experience and some of that fun and laughter and stories, because it's such a big part of your life, football, and it's amazing. And listen, we'll see what happens over the next few weeks and months, and hopefully we can get something. I can get something sorted and something that's going to be worthwhile, and I can continue to enjoy football and from a different side, as you say.
Well, Curtis, look, congratulations on a fantastic career.
No problem. Thank you.
Enjoy retirement.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Thank you.